My head is kind of exploding. So, uh,
6 hours
I think
later.
I think there were two. I don't know if we talked about this. Kind of consider this and didn't wind up talking about it, or if we actually talked about it. There were two charts. One from Ramp where they're tracking paid subscriptions to AI among businesses, and one from Gallup, which was measuring adoption at work among U.S. employees. And both of those numbers were north of 50%, just north of 50%. So there is a lot of adoption, but the relevant question, which you sort of imply, Andy, in there, is how is it being used? How frequently is it being used? How is it integrated into a larger structure? What's the culture of the organization? A lot of the early at work AI usage was just people BYOAI, right? I mean, it was just people showing up and like on the sly doing stuff with AI. Now it's being mandated. I mean, you've got two scenarios like we're making the organization efficient and thus laying off 10,000 people, or you've got people who are saying you have to start using AI and you're going to be evaluated on that. Which
Yeah.
there was a story about Amazon employees doing so-called tokenmaxxing.
I was gonna mention that.
Yeah, because they want to be seen as using AI, and they're just faking it, right? A lot of them are just inflating their actual usage because that's the incentive that they're being given if it's part of the performance review process. But putting that aside, the right way to do this from a corporate perspective would be to say, hey, we've got these tools. They're going to make everybody more efficient. Nobody's going to lose their jobs. These will help you get rid of the drudgery of your job so you can focus on more interesting stuff. Here's what the limitations are. Here's what the benefits are, and we'll figure it out together. This is an exciting new technology. That is not what most corporations in the United States have done. Well, so they have created a climate of fear,
Yes.
and they
Yes.
have used AI as a leverage point to control employees. Hey,
Yes.
no more uppity employees if your job is at risk, right? So it's a control. Especially in the tech industry, where if there's a sort of Damocles of layoffs over your head, you're just going to be a lot less vocal about things you
A
don't
lot
like
of
at
these
that company.
layoffs are also huge numbers coming from Meta and Google and
Yeah.
Microsoft and Amazon, and it's a little bit no wonder. I mean, if yes, Meta just laid off another 8,000 people, but when you look at it in the grand scheme of things, that's they're now down to what 40,000 employees, from which is like what their staffing was 2 years ago. So some of this is over hiring and building out for the metaverse and other things that never materialized. And so the numbers are huge, no doubt, but is it really indicative of what's happening at the street level with other small businesses, which are the lion's share of?
We ask those questions about, are you going to hire fewer people in the future? Are you going to, what are their hiring thoughts now that they've had some taste of AI? And some people say, yes, it reduces my need to hire people, and other people say I'm not. There's going to be no change, and I think there's a spectrum, and it depends. Small business is this term that everybody uses, but there's a big difference between a two-person operation and 98-person or 400-person operation.
For sure.
So, once you sort of get below the surface into these details, it all kind of the generalizations sort of evaporate. I just think that the culture of American business, nowhere in the world are people as afraid of AI as they are in the United States.
Right.
And part of the reason for that is the way these companies have behaved and the way that employers who have embraced AI have behaved and the messages that they have put out to their workers.
Yeah.
And OpenAI, for example, is in serious trouble. They're in serious trouble
Well, they've done a
because
bunch of damage to their brand. I mean, they've
yes,
done like
that's exactly
incredible
right.
damage to their brand.
Right. There have been a series of missteps, some of which are kind of just rookie mistakes or hubris, and some of them are really affirmatively bad behavior and choices. And that's gonna impact them. They missed their numbers, right? I mean, it was not Sarah Fryer, the CFO, who said that. It was like you know, according to people with knowledge of the matter, they missed their numbers both on the revenue side and on the consumer adoption side. It's gonna that their brand perception, the fact that they now are at least in certain quarters not seen as a in a positive way is going to impact all kinds of things downstream. The extent to which businesses and consumers trust them with their data, the extent to which people want to buy the OpenAI phone, right? They're going to have a lot harder time selling that phone today than they would have if it had come out in 2023, for
Yeah.
example.
And by the way, if you go back to that graph that Andy, you had in terms of where we really are on the adoption curve, like as much as it feels like this thing is like, saturated, played out, whatever, like,
Totally not.
falling behind on your numbers at this stage in the game where there's still, like 93 yards to run, like is scary. I mean, this is where, the first mover is dead and off to the side of the road in the first 10% of the race.
There's a morning consult survey, which I won't describe in detail. The bottom line of which, and you always have to be skeptical about survey data to some degree, but the bottom line of which is people are using these different apps, these different AI tools in different ways. They're discriminating in terms of how they use them. And Gemini is being used as a kind of extension of search, as a utility to get information, to do research, to get quick facts. It's not being used as a companion. It's not being used as a creative collaborator. ChatGPT is being used in those ways. But then here comes Claude, and Claude is being used by professionals, and it's being used for other cases. And there is overlap, right? They said that there was a 40 to 60% overlap between Gemini and ChatGPT. So you've got two things going on. You've got people figuring out what the different tools are good for, and you've got a certain amount of redundancy. And this is the Facebook, Friendster, MySpace phenomenon, right? It's like first there was Friendster, then there was MySpace, and then there was Facebook. And people were on MySpace and Facebook at the same time. So when MySpace sort of started dying, they just moved over to Facebook.
Yeah.
And when Facebook became less cool, they just moved over to this other thing that they were already on. And there's a similar thing that OpenAI is at risk with.
Yeah.
Friendster,
somebody bought the Friendster domain for $25,000 about a month ago. So here's your projection. Here's your prediction. 24 years from now, somebody will, I don't know what the number is. Somebody will be able to buy OpenAI.com or whatever the heck their URL is for $30,000. That's where this is headed.
Well, I don't want OpenAI to fail. I just want them to clean up their act. I just want them to clean up their act. I want them to clean up their act. I am actively rooting for aggressive competitors to Google, because as you alluded to, Andy, everybody said Google is toast. They're not toast because they have so much money and they have been able to really kind of right the ship from a user retention standpoint. But people don't do everything with Gemini.
ChatGPT has now introduced ads into the free tier, and they're terrible because they don't have the data, and they'll likely continue to be terrible because they don't have the data. For advertisers, you're going to go where your ad dollars are most efficient and where you're going to acquire customers for the least amount. If you have an inefficient marketplace because you don't have the data, then you're not going to win the ad dollars that are projected